So it is about 6 p.m. today on May 3rd. We are the Waldoboro Communications and Technology Committee. I'm Ruben Mahar, the chair. We have Richard Hossis and Bob Butler with us. I don't know why your name left my brain for half a second. That was weird.
It leaves mine all the time.
Oh,
Don't worry.
all right. Well, hey, we have a theme. That's great. Max is here. We never say that. So I hereby call this meeting to order. Looks like we have a quorum present, seeing as all the members are present. Any adjustments to the agenda? Take your silence to mean no.
Nope, that was just.
Oh, okay. Max has been kind enough to send us some minutes. Has everyone been able to review those?
Yes,
Anyone want to make a motion to pass those minutes?
I make a motion that we pass the meetings for February, March 1st and March 15th.
Okay. Second. And we have a second. So the minutes are passed. Max, thanks for doing all those. I have no idea how you got that done in between all the other stuff you get
I
done.
don't know either.
We've got citizen comments on here. No citizens in the room. Our standard operating procedure seems to be that if anyone comes up in YouTube or comes in later, we'll circle back to that. And new business. Looks like we've got legislative changes happening in Augusta. Is that you, Max?
Yeah, what I was pretty much saying in that is that there's been a few legislative items that I think we each have sort of had interested in since the last meeting. I could certainly talk about mine. Ruben, you've been getting some press coverage for the one I can't remember the LD that you like so much.
Oh, 920?
920. And then Bob, I think you shared something about the Maine Broadband Commission. It was 126 million.
That number rings a bell with me, yes.
That might click into your head.
And they're looking at getting more now with the act from Congress.
Right.
Yep.
So if you two want to quickly talk about that first, and then I'll know my thing.
Sure, I'll bring up my notes on LD. And Bob, if you get your stuff before me, I guess you win. So let's see.
I just gotta turn my phone off to airplane mode here, so I'm not bothered with it. I haven't seen that there are some bills before the legislature with regard to broadband. And a lot of them focus on broadband in a rural context. And then there's the one that you testified concerning, where we were suggesting that they have another look at the way they're structuring it. We were more interested in incentivizing fiber optic and encouraging people to put that in as opposed to DSL and cable. And I have no idea how that has evolved or whether they've even had the hearing on it yet. Or completed the hearing. I don't know whether they referred that to the legislative body or not.
I'd have to look and see where they were in that piece. Some of the stuff that I think Max is going to talk about. This is all these various things I think are going to take us in that direction.
Right.
LD 920, they're still working in the language. Last I knew, I haven't really checked up on it thoroughly in the last couple of days. But I saw some definitions in there that I either didn't know about or that are new. One that I liked in cable is they're covering all services provided by a video service provider. So they're not just saying cable TV, they're saying whatever goes over the wire.
Everything. That's good.
Which is really the spirit of what we sent in. If my bill has internet, phone, and thing, get your fee based on that whole thing. So I need to read the whole thing.
One of the things that impressed me that I saw recently, and I think it's a concept at this point, is redefining service.
That's what I was going to talk about in a
That's
minute.
meaning 100 by 100.
Yeah.
Instead of 20 by 5 or whatever.
25 by 3.
Yeah, it's kind of a ridiculous number. But you carry forth on that, Max. I think you know more about that than I do.
Yeah, so
I
right.
was just encouraged to see it.
Right. Thank you for passing that on. So recently the state has just entered in a public comment period where the Connect Maine Authority is redefining what a serviced community is. During the Connect Maine portion, you will probably remember how I was pulling my hair because I had to remember, or I had to have all the residents prove they did not have 25.3 service. So in this case, it's the same thing. Now it is residents having to prove that they won't have 100 by 100 service. Although I think they do find acceptable, I think it was 100, 50-10 or something. I think it was 50-10. I think they would consider that service. It was weird. The email that was put out was just weird. I'll say that. I think it was, as grants are going forward, they want to make sure that it is 100 and 100 service. But I think if if an area has 50-10, that would be considered serve. But I need some more specific guidance on that.
The way I read that was, let's say that my road is considered served for broadband.
Right.
There's nothing on your road. If my pre-existing service tests out at that minimum, we'll call it 50 by 10,
Yeah.
then I'm considered served. And we're not going to put funds into wiring my road when your road has nothing. Now, when we put new infrastructure into your road,
Has to be
we want that
100.
infrastructure on day one to be capable of at least 100 by 100.
Okay, so that is what I was thinking was that.
So it's infrastructure versus an upgrade.
Right.
Right.
As much as I would love to have that faster speed, if I can already get 50 by 10, then I can see why, setting those two things aside. And they were doing something similar with 100 by 10. If I already had, 50 by 10 on my road, I wouldn't get new infrastructure that can meet that new minimum speed. But anywhere they wire new, they want to have something that can hit that minimum. So that investment will be, you don't have to make it so soon again.
Right.
So it's buying the right tool for the right job.
So I don't know where that would really put Waldeboro, since I would say that kind of covers a good chunk of town still.
It depends on how they define the medium too. Is this wireline, or are we considering stuff that comes through the air?
That's the other part of it. And I think in the public comment period, I at least would be fine with making a comment saying, please don't consider wireless service as service, because as I said in the past meeting, Starlink has kind of messed up a few communities already from getting these grants.
Yep.
And it really does provide a very negative impact on them.
And I think that's a great technology, and I've got nothing negative to say about anything SpaceX does. They make rockets that land themselves. That's super neat. The drum I'll keep beating about Starlink specifically is it's working where it exists.
Mm-hmm.
It is very much a beta, and there's nothing about it that guarantees service. Now, having said that, I've had people reach out to me that are still going to be a long time before they can get wireline broadband.
Mm-hmm. And
I'll tell them, hey, try and get a hold of this technology, because it is pretty cool and it does work. Wire is always going to be faster than air. A physical connection managed properly is going to be better than a wireless technology. That's just how it is. There are people that don't like that. Not a lot. There's probably less than a handful that I can think of. But when you're doing something this big and trying to deliver this service, I think the goal should be physical media to as many places as possible. And then anyone that absolutely can't get that, great. We'll leave the spectrum open for them to go through satellite or whatever technology.
Yeah.
Does the recent communication from ConnectMe affect, it seemed to me to impel you to go back to our grants to either resubmit them or amend them, but I'm hearing now that you don't think you need to do that. Is that a correct impression, Max?
Are you talking about the email that I have up right now, where they're asking for people to redo their maps or something?
Well, yes and no. I mean, if that's a pre-requirement to the current round of grants.
Are you talking about the service, the 100 stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
No,
okay.
That has no impact on this one.
But something impelled you to go back and look at some of the submissions you made.
Yeah, so that was going to probably be when we get to the Connect Main portion of
okay.
the grant, because that was a fun time.
You're going to throw you a parade at some point.
I just want internet on those roads.
All right. Have we exhausted the legislative stuff everyone's spoken about? Okay, great. Moving on. We are down to old business. Chapel Road. I drove 2 hours ago. There's about, by my eye, about a third of a mile left to run the cable, the
Wow.
physical wire.
That's good.
I'm expecting people to ask me when it turns on.
Mhm.
I don't know. I owe everyone an email. I was going to email Shelley, just ask if anyone can give us a rough ETA on when that network will be energized. Running the wire on that pole is not the same as turning it on, and I won't pretend to know their system anywhere near that deeply. But when you go and look at the wiring and the work, it's being done, really, really well. So I'm hoping not a whole lot longer.
Is there any indication from their side that they're beginning to let people know that it's going to be available by a date and that they should sign up?
So I can't say yes or no to that because I haven't asked that question.
Okay.
I would be surprised if they had gone that far and put in the resources they have without sending that out.
Yeah.
So I was just going to send it out and ask if there's any kind of ETA, and with it, I'm going to ask if there's, is there any help they need? Are there calls that are appropriate, to make to the homes or anything like that? Since we've been working on all this to get that wire up, I don't think it would be unreasonable to have the town maybe reach out and say, hey, everyone, this is about to come online. So we need some information and we need some guidelines.
Okay.
I remember being given an ETA from their crew.
Mhm.
It was a number they gave me that I thought wasn't going to happen, and I thought, okay, that's very generous, and I'm not going to tell anyone because it seems, because I don't want another situation where we're giving them a timeline and then by the end of it,
Take it away.
yeah, they start making some certain comments in public. But I will say it's very much what they've, like, if they only have a third of the mile left, then this is actually the timeline they're getting at, and that's very impressive.
Mhm.
And I'll say that it's soon, that they'd probably be done soon.
Good, looking forward to it. I'm hoping by our next meeting, we can just cross Chapel off the list.
If it's fine, we might be able to just send some mail out to them and just say, hey, they're done.
Yep.
You got.
Well, I'm sure,
They're probably gonna put something in the mail or something.
I would think so. But yeah, I'll send that email out because I'm curious myself. And you all will be included in that, so you'll know what I know.
So if the cable, just to theorize for a minute, without saying anything definite, if the cable's almost done.
Yep.
And they get that third of a mile finished, say, just for sake of argument, in a week, which probably isn't too ambitious, but let's just say you give them another week to get it done, or even go further.
2 weeks.
Say end of May,
End of May.
they get all the cable up.
Mhm.
Then they have to light it up, don't they?
Yeah, so they've got everything up in the poles. They have to light that up, and then each home installation, according to, and I was just reading the fact on Charter's website, it's 1 to 3 hours to get new cable from the tap, the pole, into the home. You've got to schedule all that.
Okay, so it's really just connecting house to house at that point. Yeah.
But if you keep a close eye on it, if you look at a house that already has cable, internet, or TV or whatever, they're putting all that stuff up. So when that's done, then you have people call in and make their things. And I don't know how Charter's planning to install this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they said, well, let's get this whole road done. I don't know if they have a group they can just send out to get that done in one shot or what they do there. But when you already have the tools on a road,
Yeah.
Maybe they can, blitz that.
Oh, that's-
I'm sure this isn't their first time doing it. They've got tens of millions of customers, but like I said, I'll ask that question and see what information they can share.
Would it be bad form to contact the people on the road that we know who've been interested, to tell them or to suggest to them that they confirm to us that they're going to sign up with an address? And then we send that to Spectrum and let them know, hey, when you finish, whenever that is, this is a list of the people with their addresses who want to connect to you. Please get in touch with them and schedule your work.
I think that might be over processing a little bit, but when I send that email out, I'm going to include that piece of, is there any interaction you need from the town to move this along?
Okay.
Or that might just be a suggestion, say, if all these people who do want it say, can you just hook us up while you have the tools up there, then might be a way of saving some
Yeah.
money.
So I'll pose that as a question.
Okay.
I like your idea. I just don't want to.
No,
I
I
don't
get
poke anyone
it.
too
I don't want
hard.
to step on toes either.
We're at the end of the finish line. We don't want to trip right in front of it.
Yeah,
Right.
that would be a thing. Let's see here. Old business B, Connect Main April grants.
Yes. So April 12th, grants were submitted. they then delayed it. Connect Maine then saw a few grants that weren't up to their standards, so they gave about a 2-week April 23rd was a new deadline they gave to resubmit all these grants.
Mhm.
And this was mostly technical stuff. They just said, it's a new grant, so obviously people aren't going to know every single thing that we're asking for. So here are the comments. It was essentially a helpful redo. So they gave me comments and said, this is wrong. This is something that you need to address. And fortunately, there were some parts that were, a good chunk of it was solved. The main issue was always about the map, I would say. And no, actually, it was just the map. And that's actually that's the email that I have up on the TV screen that I just got from Connect Maine today. I think I mentioned this in a previous meeting. So when submitting it, we have to provide two things. One is a PDF version of the GIS map that shows what the new project area is going to be. And then the second thing we need to do is provide what was the specific thing? I think it was like a KMZ or some type of file system, KML file, that shows the data of the residents that are going to get the support. So with my map for Store Mountain, at least, because I assumed Charter was going to do the one for Flanders and Fintown, and I'll get to that in a minute. When I did mine for Store, I think I've shown you guys, it's the same ones that I've submitted during the comment period back in January.
They used yours as an example of doing it right, didn't they?
Again, we'll get to that in a minute. So I submit that, and they say, all right, you're all set, done. And I used the E911 addresses. I showed where the existing fiber line is, and I made a blue line that said, this is the line it's going to use. And then I did the same thing for the Charter one when I was essentially asked from Charter, can you just do that? If they love your map, can you do that for the other two? So fine, whatever. So I get this, and I've been in a few email exchanges with Stephanie about it. And I just point blank say, you're saying we need to resubmit a map by May 6th. Does that include all three Waldeboro applications? This is Store Mountain with LCI, and then Fintown and Flanders for Charter. And they're apparently going to be doing a conference call with Charter tomorrow. And they said, your Store Mountain one was fine. It was your other two that were an issue. And I'm like, how is that possible? Because it's the same map. But I don't know. So Charter is going to be talking with Connect Maine tomorrow, going over that. The details, the actual narrative, the financial items, all that is done. There is no issue with that. It is strictly the map that is still ongoing. But I'm told the Store Mountain is done. It's just the Charter one. So I'm going to talk with them a bit more tomorrow to get some information on that.
Okay.
And I think that's about it. I was going to have I meant to email out the applications when they were done, but I'll do that after the meeting.
I'm excited to see anyone get internet. Store Mountain Road, though,
Nice.
I think I'm the most excited about. Chapel, those residents have participated often, and we definitely know their opinion. But Store Mountain too, they've been right there helping us help them best they
They
can.
have been.
And so it seems extra. It feels extra good to. I know it's not done yet, but
Right.
to see that submitted and knock on wood, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and the day that it was being submitted on April 12th, I remember confirming the prices and everything with the LCI, and they said, can you confirm that every person up there is going to do it? And I had all but one letter of support. And when I reached out, and I think it was Jim Lenny I was talking to, and I said, what about this one person? Because, apparently there's a difference between 6 and 7 people who are supporting. And he said, yeah, this person who hasn't sent a letter of support, they just didn't do an email, but they called me and said, yeah. I'm like, all right, we'll go with it.
Yep.
That's great.
All right, next up is survey and long-term connectivity goals.
Yeah. So this was something I think we talked about last meeting.
Yep.
You know, the Connect Main round, this one's done. I'm hoping next time we can still do a Connect Main grant for the roads that aren't accepted this time. I am going to anticipate Fintown's not going to be accepted just because of the amount that's being requested. But there are some roads that we didn't include this time, such as Deaver Road, Hoke Road, and I assume there's probably going to be a few more. And I think we discussed a survey would probably be an ideal thing to do right now, just to see who is unserved. And if you got, I mean, Bob, if you want to talk about your idea for it, I was going to quickly run to my office and grab the old surveys that
Okay.
you did originally. So if you want to talk about what you would imagine on the survey,
Okay.
and then you guys can just go on with ideas for the survey.
Well, I'm just sort of, this is off the top of my head, just to sort of stimulate discussion, but I mean, we've really narrowed it down now. I mean, there aren't a lot of people in Waldoboro who don't have service of some kind. So I would think the questionnaire would want to ask people, first, do you have service? I doubt they're going to know what speed it is. Some people might know that. Maybe we should ask the question in hopes that we get answers.
If they could at least tell us who it's through, that would let us.
Or maybe we
inform
give
us.
them options for services we know exist,
That's a great idea.
or just say by company.
Yep.
Is it with LCI? Is it with Spectrum, or is
Like a
it
checklist of some
Consolidated?
sort.
Those are the only three available in this town. Am I right? I'm wrong. Red
Oh, yeah, red zone.
Red zone.
Yep.
is available, I think, still in some places in Waldoboro. I don't know anybody who's using it, but it would be interesting to know if some people are using it. In terms of the distribution of the questionnaire,
These were already filled out ones.
we should be able to pinpoint where we need to go and really focus on getting even if we hand deliver it, getting the questionnaire into the hands of people whom we don't know for sure have service that's either substandard or non-existent,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's going to take too much time. I'm happy to knock on doors and hand surveys to people. Rather than print out a whole big thing where you've got huge numbers of people sending in responses. I mean, what we're looking for, I think, is the bare minimum. Whom do we need to contact on Deaver Road, on Hoke Road, on Fintown Road, and some of these other roads in town that don't have service? Nash Road is one of them, isn't it?
Road? Oh, yeah.
I'm just talking off the top of my head here. So make it a really focused, specific, geographically specific survey.
Mhm.
And then the questions we need, this was general.
Right.
The first one we did. This one can really drill down into the nitty. I could think maybe 6 questions, 7 questions max. No pun intended. And that we wouldn't need any more questions than that to really understand where that next round of grant applications might go.
Would you concentrate the survey to just those roads?
I would suggest we do that unless you felt differently.
I think a focused approach is the right idea. I mean, that pass is going to be cleanup. We're getting to such a small scope. What's left, and that'll help us kind of identify what our options are and how
Yep.
we go about that.
I mean, we wouldn't be sending a survey townwide and ask people, are you happy with your internet service? I mean, that's a whole different.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that. I don't feel at this point, given our knowledge base of who doesn't have it or who's substandard, that we need to go that direction at this point. I would think that would follow on later.
I think people in general will talk to each other and stimulate each other to get service to
Yep.
neighbor and so on.
And then would that result sort of, and then the locations, would that determine which provider we go to partner with?
Yeah, because I think
I mean, I would give a full list to anyone that will talk to us.
Say-
Treat it like a bid.
I was gonna say, I feel if store is connected, that's it for LCI, isn't it?
Store?
Yeah, once store is done, that's it for all potential LCI expansions, isn't it? Like, I can't think of another private or public road up there that wouldn't have LCI, correct? Well, other than Flanders Corner, but they might be getting charter at this point. So that's what I'm saying. I think if we're looking at all the roads that aren't served, I can't think of anything up there that's not LCI. But I might be wrong.
And you could very well be right. What I want to avoid doing is not asking. I want to give LCI or charter or whoever a chance to say no.
Right.
Whether they're close to it or not, because who knows what's going to go on with LCI? They might have an unrelated project that causes them to pass one of these areas. And I think one of the things I like to try and maintain, while I have my own opinions about technology, is being sort of agnostic as far as provider goes. Give everyone a shot, and see who can build the service out.
Does Consolidated play any kind of role here? Because they made an announcement, was it last week, about investing a lot of money to upgrade their existing service to fiber. They actually said the word fiber.
So every single wireline ISP, including Consolidated, owns fiber that goes through this area. What they don't currently do is fiber to the home. They do have commercial operations where they can deliver fiber.
Consolidated even has it?
They absolutely do. So remember, they own what was Verizon's infrastructure up here. So they've got stuff feeding commercial places and cell phone towers, things like that. So there's a significant cost in expanding those plants out, because you take one of your commercial things and you feed, whatever their network system is to deploy out to these houses. So, but they have that core infrastructure there.
I had no idea.
I don't know where it is in Waldoboro, but it's true in the state.
Wow, it's beyond me that they haven't done more with that.
It depends on your density, and it can go on all day about their structure and all that too. Now that all this government money's available,
Now they're
that's
probably interested.
that could invest in their infrastructure and cause them to make more money without them spending money on it necessarily.
Right. Now, come to think of it, it was the context of that government money that they made within that context that they made the announcement.
And Charter's doing the same thing. The RDOF, the Rural Opportunity Development Fund, that's what they're all going after.
Okay.
And it's a lot of ISPs are fighting over it, pointing to all the other companies and saying, hey, they're not good enough. People are for whatever reason. So that's the battle, is they're all fighting over that pot of money.
So
Yeah.
does the questionnaire kind of the survey questions, do they kind of want us to lead us towards an answer about level of service that we want them to bid on? Or do we just leave that wide open and just figure out what they have now?
I think for our goal for the residents that are left in Waldoboro, I'm more interested in getting those remaining roads any service.
Okay.
And then as far as the other infrastructure goes, that's a whole different thing.
You can address that later.
And I think that is worth addressing. I think that is worth, going to companies. Charter's an interesting example. Their cable to the house is fed by fiber. So what would it take to upgrade that last mile infrastructure? And you could say that for any technology.
Yeah.
Or what would it take to make LCI bigger and compete with the Google Fibers of the world, where you're providing real meaningful, multi-hundred megabit bandwidth.
Okay. Can I ask another question about Consolidated? I mean, the big limiting factor has been, one, it's copper, and so the bandwidth isn't there.
Yep.
And two, because they have to have, I guess it's called a service node, or they have to have some kind of station every so often in order to keep the signal going.
Yep.
If they have fiber paired with that, they don't need those stations, or nearly as many of them.
That's accurate. I mean, you would still need stuff to split the connections out.
Right.
Yeah, fiber, depending on the laser and the medium, you can go way further on a piece of fiber.
All right.
DSL is limited by, less than 10 miles on a decent speed.
So I'm going to volunteer here.
Yep.
Are you okay with my coming up with a draft list of survey questions to send around for people to comment on and give?
I'd be extremely
Suggestions
grateful
on?
if you do that.
Would that be okay?
Is that anything we need to vote on, or is that just a thing you can do, or what's the?
I'm not going to do it unless I have your okay to do it.
Oh, yeah.
You okay with that, Max?
You want to do it, you can do it. I'm fine with that.
All right. I'm going to take some of the workload off you. I'm really thinking more about that than anything.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
We can filter even after the,
In fact,
So
we won't
it
even
goes out.
we won't even include you on the distribution until the three of us has figured out what the basic list should be, and then we'll toss it to you.
We'll give you.
That's fair. There we go.
Does that sound okay?
That sounds fine. The only thing I would suggest in the survey when it's done is, and you do have it in your last one, the red one, follow-up questions and contact. Definitely a way of contacting them either through email or telephone, because when it does come to these grants, just looking at how it was done with Store, and I feel very comfortable that Store would probably be our best chance of getting a grant this round, just because of how active those residents were. How I just needed to, I could send out one email to all 7 of them. They all saw it and they all acted accordingly. I had one good person down on Deaver Road who got a lot of work done and was a tad heartbroken that Deaver wasn't in this grant round. On Flanders Corner, we had some responsive people, and then even on Fintown, I got a few people who were able to respond, but I had to drive down there and I had to see who didn't have that cable line. So having that email, telephone would be really helpful for this survey.
So second objective or a secondary objective is to have that contact list and get as many people on it as we can.
Right.
Who are in the situation we're trying to deal with.
And I would say are very supportive of the connection matter, because they might be seasonal residents who don't care
Right.
if it's the best thing ever.
Yep. Okay. All right. I had nothing else to add.
So pretty much with what I'm hearing, the survey we're focusing on is certainly the people who aren't connected. So what did we want? What was the interest in the long term with, like, what everyone's talking about now with municipal fiber? What's the group's thoughts on that?
I think the concept of municipal fiber is very interesting, but it's a different animal that would require a lot of buy-in.
Right.
What are we not getting? What do we need? There's no service that you can buy at a retail price in Waldoboro or in most of the state that will give you something like gigabit synchronous. Unless you're a large company, you can't get a service that will let you upload at a gig, let alone or even 100 meg.
Mm-hmm.
And leaving stuff at the status quo, you got to wonder how long it will be before people can do that. Right now on cable, which is the major thing most people can get, you're limited to 40 meg up, which sounds great, but if you've used 100 meg up, it's not quite the same. If you have a room, or not a room, let's say you have 4 kids in school, all on different grades, all on video, all using 10 megs of upload each, you burn through that. And that's without anything specifically impressive in video or technologies that are coming. That's current state.
Yeah.
So either those existing ISPs upgrade to fiber to the home, where they're doing gig or multi-gig, or something new comes through. Time-wise, everyone put their resources into getting copper phone lines out everywhere. Certain phone companies get money from the government for being the provider of last resort to maintain that copper network. I think that whole thing would need to change. I think that would need to change to provider of last resort for data. And everything would go over that pipe. That's a hard push. That's a hard job. And I'm not shy about it, but I think that's the next barrel we'll be staring down.
Is that a legislative issue that we need to pursue with our?
It would start there. We
Okay.
need to start some wider ranging conversations. Some of that goes back to the discussion we had about LD 920, where it didn't go wide enough. We need to start. They've made some great changes. Not that bill will do some useful things, but that scope, I maintain, my personal opinion, was far too narrow. I want to get everyone to a point where they don't have to think about or ask how fast their internet is. It's like people generally don't have to wonder how much electricity they can pull into their house. We need to get data to the same place.
I think it has a huge impact on economic development too. I mean, if our vision
Yes.
for Waldoboro is to encourage small family-owned businesses who can survive on their property and be worldwide in scope, then they need that data capability.
Yep.
We're being held back.
And that's, no one's providing it at that level. The
Yeah.
potential's there.
Yeah.
Once you have, fiber to your premise, that the potential is there, but no one's delivering it at that wide of an angle. It's just not there.
That's why I didn't know if we wanted to talk. That's why, at least last month, I was under the impression that when we were doing the survey, there was going to be the front half that was going to be specifically geared towards people who may not have service at this point. And then the other half was going to be this municipal wide system of saying, all right, we know you likely have connectivity, but is there actual interest in going with this, with upgrading it?
Mhm.
Because I know my concern has always been, if they don't change the definition, there's no point because there's no grant money. But as we just discussed, they're not only changing the definition, they're now getting this new commission together. They're changing the legislation. They are making some plays, and it's good to have it prepared just so that when the money is available, we have the information on hand. But
So
I didn't.
you're thinking of about a far broader survey that really would encapsulate the whole town, basically.
Pretty much the type of survey that the committee did. When was this original survey done?
Gosh, 3 years ago,
Right?
maybe more.
Really?
Did we not put a date on this?
2015.
2015. Wow, 6
Yeah.
years ago.
Just
It doesn't
time
seem
ago.
like it.
So in 2015, you at least had, I would say, something similar to what you have right here, where in the blue section it's saying, what is your internet speed right now? What do you use it for? And if we were to upgrade it, what would be the ideal thing that you would use it for? Because I think some people may just say, we're fine with it as is. And some are probably going to say, we need to upgrade it. And knowing,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, and I'm just rambling. And I was just going to say, just knowing that would help.
People aren't going to know what they need.
If you had a company who wanted to expand, similar to a company you used to have, right? And you wanted to expand and internet was a big portion of it, who would they go to in Waldoboro on economic development or what, selectmen or what, to ask what can we do?
Well, I mean, if you're a business and you're getting broadband, you don't go to the town hall. You contact the mutual providers and their
You could
commercial sales.
contact the provider itself.
right.
Okay.
Well, I contacted the planner when I first came to town. I mean, that's who the town manager put me in contact with.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that was the right move to make because the planner at that time knew to whom I should speak. And it all fell together.
Okay.
And I'm confident that if someone new walked into Max's office, they'd get the same kind of sound, practical advice
Oh,
that I got.
100% there, yeah.
Yeah, today I had a fun conversation where someone was interested in buying a property, wanted to know about goats and grazing near the water. I surprisingly knew that very, very quickly where to look.
Huh,
Yeah, little things you can pull out of your head that you know about.
that's pretty good.
I
So
want
yes,
to ask the question again though, Max, should we be focusing very narrowly, because we're talking about a round of grants here, on the survey, on those whom we know either are underserved or don't have service? So we come up with that list. And then perhaps the next time around, when the issue begins to
Broaden.
explode, that we come out with a broader survey so we're not mixing the two up. I guess I'm concerned that people would be confused.
Right.
about the purpose of the survey.
I think with what you want to do on just seeing who's served, who's unserved, who wants the internet in general, I think that's a good thing to start with, especially if it's a very focused thing.
Small focused number. Yep.
Mainly because we can probably get away with it in terms of the budget. Because with what I'm talking about with this general thing, I'd almost imagine it's going to be similar to what we did with the community center or public transportation, where we kind of needed to just get a grant through Lincoln County to then just mail a letter to every single person in town. Which
It doesn't say we can't run them both at the same time. I mean, develop
yeah.
surveys at the same time and then run them separately.
Yeah, we probably could, but I think in terms of timeline, you're right that your survey that you're talking about, that's about seeing who's unserved, for getting a new grant, that's probably the better thing to do right now. Because if the next grant round is going to be in 2 months.
Oh, wow, that soon?
No, I'm just
Okay.
saying if it is in
Yeah.
2 months.
The grants require details.
They need details. We need to show people, we need to show the state that these people are unserved and they need to know. So if you were to put out a survey and say, go to the speed test website that the state always does, see what you currently have, and then tell us that information. I mean, we're done at that point for these roads and we can just submit the grant at that point. But you're right. The municipal wide system that I'm talking about, we can have talks, we can research, and then we can go out with surveys and everything.
Great. Look, we've all made a bunch of comments, but are there any CTC committee member comments?
That's just if we haven't talked about a topic that we want.
I love having this list. I like lists.
Just to say something you've said, and you've said many times, and that is to thank Max for all the effort he's put into
Thank you.
making these
Maybe
grants
Tom
work
Absolutely.
and getting them in front of the guys who make the decisions. That's huge. Thank you.
I really just hope that this Connect Main thing makes sense in the end.
My only comment is looking at, I'll use the term municipal fiber. I'm not necessarily sold on the idea of the town or the county running its own ISP. But I do like the idea of internet access being treated like utility, like water, like power. And while there are other neat engineering things you could do with the other mediums we have on there, I want something that can deliver up to 10 gigs to a house.
Yep.
When that's in place, I will call it done. And
Okay,
that's going to live a much longer time.
that's a good target to set, though.
And it doesn't have to be a service you can buy. I want media to every home that can deliver a service that fast. And maybe some genius kid will start a business in their garage that needs a 10 gig synchronous connection. That can only be good for the town. Or that needs that much education, or that's going to do some future thing we haven't thought of yet. That skips a whole bunch of things. When we fund things like cable, and I'm grateful for the cable expansions we get, the highest end cable connection you can get is about a gig down and 40 meg up. And doesn't feel right upgrading to something that limited, and it is limited in the wide scope of things. So yeah, getting fiber that's end to end with no other medium in between, that should be the goal.
Love it.
I think that's what we can. We have these roads that are left. These few residents. I want to get them on whatever the current state is, but then yeah, I want to work on some truly future tech. I want to leave a footprint for that. And that might be Waldoboro, that might be countywide. I think we've got some interpersonal networking to do. Let's talk and see what other people are doing. I think it's a good goal for the next piece.
That's great goal.
With that, we have a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion, we adjourn.
What do you think, Bob?